Hey everybody, welcome. My name is Megan Hudson and I am an admission counselor within the Office of Admissions. And I've been talking with Sarah, who I'm sure you are all familiar with, about creating a presentation for our alumni volunteers just to talk a little bit about college and the application process for students that you may encounter. So today I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the selection process, the application process for students, and ultimately how you may be able to answer questions. So thanks for joining me and we'll get right into it. So I want to start off talking a little bit about the differences between major institutions that we have in our country. I know that our alumni are quite spread out, which is pretty awesome to hear that, we have alumni that can reach as far, I should say, as California. So if you ever come into contact with students and they have any questions about private versus public universities and how community colleges factor into that, this could be some helpful information for you. So as Appalachian alum, we obviously know that App is a public institution. That means it's funded by the state government. Typically, tuition is lower for public institutions. However, they might not have as many funds for scholarships, and overall, their programs might not have the funding that's always available at private institutions, which you can see are privately funded, and typically they have more funding for things like scholarships. So, in terms of questions you might receive from students, that might be something they may ask, and you might also get some questions about how Appalachian helps students that transfer in from community colleges, and we have a very transfer-friendly university overall, in my opinion. We have a ton of transfer guides that are on our website, and they can help students select classes. They can also help students see the intended major that they could potentially go into if they were to transfer. So community college transfers are typically really welcome at Appalachian, and we have a lot of resources in place to help them with their transition. Moving on into just some overall information on college sizes in general. So I would say, place in between the large and the huge type of college size, as you can see here. We have enrolled this past year approximately 4,000 freshmen, which is a little bit higher than past years. I'm sure a lot of you are aware of our 20,000 by 2020 goal that we have. And this is something that I would say has created a lot of growth in the university and has allowed us to move into that category. So this might be a question you might see. However, I would say Appalachian has done a really good job of trying to keep the community really tight-knit despite our growth. So now I'm going to talk to you a little bit about some things that Appalachian prospective students or students that you talk to in general might be looking for as they examine their choices. And we call this school environment in our office. Just various things that students are looking for in their college experience that they are excited about, that they, ultimately choose the school that they attend based off of these numerous factors. So, of course, the number one factor that many students consider is how far away is the school from their home. And studies show that students typically do attend school that isn't too far away from home. So that is a huge reason why we have a ton of applicants from the Charlotte area as well as the Raleigh metro area. However, some students, I would say, want that out-of-state experience. So we do have quite a few students that come in from out-of-state areas. So that is definitely a large factor. For Appalachian, I think we get a ton of interest in our athletic programs, and that is definitely something that interests students as they examine various choices for college. Of course, one of the biggest factors that students also consider is what kind of clubs and organizations do that school have, or does that school have? And that is something that definitely can lure prospective students into a particular school. So if you're talking with prospective Appalachian students, I think some really strong things that you could mention other than athletics would be Greek life, Student Government Association. We have over 150 clubs that specifically help communities and especially in the nearby area of Boone. We also have a ton of different clubs that students can use to get involved outside of their residence hall and things of that nature. So that is just a little bit about the different programs we offer, and overall we have about 400 different clubs and organizations on campus, and students can even create their own club if that is something that they are interested in. A sense of community is definitely one of the largest strengths I think that Appalachian has as alumni. We can all speak on this, of course, and you definitely get to see that on a game day, but a sense of community might also be something that draws prospective students. And then, of course, majors and programs. We have 150 different majors here at Appalachian, so those vary from things like business to nursing to pre-med to pre-law. Really, any student can find their niche and their home here at Appalachian. So if you speak to any prospective students, you could definitely mention that, or if they're just interested in college in general, try to sway them to think about the majors and programs that are offered at various schools as they're looking. Here are some more continuing factors that students may value in their choice. So the core values of the institution are a big deal to many prospective students. Can they see themselves as a student there, forming their home in that community? That is I would say a pretty big deal to students as they are looking at schools. How are they going to be supported? That's a major deal as well. Here at Appalachian, we have a counseling service where students can get free sessions to talk about anything that they may be struggling with. They also have tutoring opportunities. I believe they get up to 10 free sessions per year, which is pretty awesome. We have a really strong chemistry tutoring advising office as well, which is pretty sweet, and students can even get on-campus jobs as tutors. So I think that's another talking point in general when students are thinking about college, especially at App. And then, of course, health and wellness. We have a pharmacy on campus. You can see a doctor. I know from experience how great they are just from, getting the flu my freshman year. And I would say that that is one of the biggest things in general that could bring a student to campus overall. Other things that students might be interested in, diversity measures are obviously one of the most important things as students consider the college that they attend and the support for other various social groups. And then, of course, special opportunities that are specific to the school. Here at Appalachian, we have an honors college. We accept around 150 students into the honors college each year. Other than the Honors College, we have some great opportunities for students to build their community. We have the Watauga Residential College, which is a 2-year program where students live and learn together. We are only one of 2 entire residential colleges in the state of North Carolina. I believe UNCG has the other one. So if students ask about residential colleges and residential learning communities in general, they are communities that are pre-built essentially for students. These are great for students that are coming from an area where not a lot of students go to that particular school, or maybe they are coming from out of state and want a community that's already built for them so they can go to class together. For the residential learning communities bullet here, RLCs as we call them, they're a little bit less strict in terms of classes that you attend as the Watauga Residential College, but they are both great opportunities for students to go to class together, to have a community, to be able to experience college together. So those are great talking points as well. So in terms of applying to college, these are some icons that represent some things that you might have to talk about with prospective students. The number one item on this list, I would say, would be the Common App. This is an application that students can complete. Appalachian is a school that participates in Common App, and this is an I think, a one-stop shop for applying to colleges. So there are hundreds, if not thousands, of schools that have their application process through the Common App. So it's a pretty seamless transition, I think, for students to apply from one college to the other. So if you have any questions about that, you can definitely talk a little bit about Common App. Some transfer students and other students may apply through CFNC. That's typically where we find our transfer student application, which is another great resource for things like scholarships and paying for college as well. Then, of course, we have the FAFSA, which is the free application for federal student aid. Students need to apply for that early because the earlier they apply, the more money they get, and they are also eligible for grants and things of that nature. So that will definitely be something that you could discuss with students and is handled through the financial aid office here at Appalachian. And then, of course, last but not least, we have RDS, which is the Residency Determination Service. This is the service that determines all resident decisions in the entire state of North Carolina. So whether a student is applying to App or UNC Chapel Hill or UNCG, this entity is the responsible one for determining whether a student is considered an in-state resident or an out-of-state resident. So individual schools do not make those decisions if you get questions about that. So in terms of stressing some deadlines for you, I did want to go through this in case you are talking to prospective students. So we have a number of different deadlines that you might find buzzing out there in terms of what people talk about. We have early decisions, and those are what we call binding, which means that it's essentially a contract. If you apply to that school and you get in, you're going there, and there's not a lot of wiggle room. So this is pretty rare. I would say your Ivy Leagues, your extremely competitive colleges are the ones that do the binding decisions, your Harvard, your Yales, those kind of schools. Appalachian falls under the early action deadline type of school where we are non-binding, and I put a little star there just so that you know that we prefer at Appalachian that students apply in this window. So early action decisions will open the application through Common App from the previous slide will open on August 1st, and that will end by November 1st. We highly recommend prospective app students to apply in this deadline because we take the largest percentage of our student body in this round of decisions, and it becomes increasingly competitive after this. So again, if you're talking to prospective students about app in particular, I would stress this early action non-binding deadline. Then, of course, we have the regular decision deadline and time frame, and that will again open August 1st. That's the same, and that will end in January. So with that, students are still welcome to apply there. I would say you would apply regular decision if you wanted more time to boost your GPA in the fall semester, or if you're a little concerned that you might not get into that school. I would stress to apply during that deadline. However, with Appalachian, this isn't really necessary. And then, of course, you have the rolling admission deadline, which is non-binding. Rolling meaning, of course, that students are accepted and they apply over time. A lot of our transfer admission is rolling admission, so students can apply in February and get accepted in February. Not a lot of schools participate in this. It really just does depend on the university. And then pretty much in the time frame that you're applying to colleges, you also want to make sure that you're applying for financial aid. That application opens October 1st, and there's not really a deadline, but we highly stress applying early in between October and March so that students can get access to the most funds. All right, so now I'm going to talk a little bit about what goes in the common application that students complete for Appalachian. And these things might vary depending on where the student applies, but I'm going to mostly emphasize what Appalachian needs, and that is all going to start with an application, and that is through Common App, of course. There is a $65 fee associated with that, and we do have fee waivers for that. Other schools might participate in an application fee waiver week where it's free, but Appalachian does not participate in that at this time. So if students are applying to others, I would say take advantage of that. If you have kids that you have that are applying to various schools, or if you talk to others, have them take advantage of that. But we do accept fee waivers to waive that fee. When students apply, it's going to ask for some required materials. One of those things, of course, is the high school transcript. We have to know what their grades are in order to evaluate them. And if students are either dually enrolled or have taken college credit at a community college or another institution, we do have to have a transcript from them as well. Other than that, we have other required materials like test scores. We have to have ACT or SAT scores. Students often take both. And Appalachian Super Scores, I would highly recommend trying to find out as you're talking to students if they're interested in other schools. Something to stress would be for the student to find out if the school super scores or not, which essentially means that you can add all of your scores together to create one maximum score. So that benefits the student, and Appalachian is a school that takes part in that, and so that's something that's pretty important for them. Other than that, in the Common App application for Appalachian, there are a series of essays. One main essay goes to every school that they apply. Remember, I told you a little bit about that super application Common App on the previous slide here on the left, and they have one essay that goes to numerous schools. I would suggest for students, if you're talking to them, to write about something that really makes them stand out, something that talks about who they are as a person, if they ask you questions about that. And then some things are recommendations, not actual mandated materials. Appalachian has what we call an interest statement, so that's exclusive to Appalachian. It does not go to any other school. It's a really short statement about why that student wants to be a mountaineer. So that is what we call an interest statement. And then, of course, we have a list of activities, which is essentially a less formal resume. What have students been involved in? What are some extracurricular activities that they have done. And then, of course, letters of recommendation may be needed. Appalachian does not need letters of recommendation. They are optional at this time. So if you're an alumni and you're interested in advocating for a student, you're more than welcome to complete an overall recommendation letter. However, they don't weigh heavy, and I would say that they're not really used in admission decisions with the exception of scholarships. So just keep that in mind if you have someone that comes to you as an alum and says, hey, can you write me a letter? It is something that you could definitely do. We just don't need them per se. And then over here, I have a school conduct form. This is needed if a student has had a suspension or, it could be something that they got reported for. We do have to have that, and that is typically not seen very often, but it is something that we look into if applicable. All right, so one of the biggest things that I think students need to take advantage of, especially if that school has the opportunity to do so, like Appalachian does, it would be to take advantage of admission counselors and having them as a resource for students. It's really important, I think, for students to connect with their admission counselors, and that's why we're here. Our biggest passion, and I know I can speak for my team on this, is helping students and, leading and guiding them through the application process. So if you meet a student and they really want to talk with an admission counselor, please connect them with us because we want to meet them, we want to talk to them, and we do have, an element of advocacy for the student, and I think it's really important that we meet them, either face-to-face or through a Zoom call, or talking with them at least would be something that we really look forward to. So we can see them in a number of different ways. Obviously with COVID right now, it's a little bit different, but college fairs, high school visits are two primary ways that we connect with students in our office. Right now we're doing a lot of webinars and really taking advantage of the platform of the internet currently. So please emphasize to students that you talk to contact their admission counselors. And this goes for any university really. So as you can see here, I have some pictures. That's me at a high school visit at a high school in Lincoln County, North Carolina. And then obviously our office is in the Jet building, which is there down below. So, I wanted to introduce you to our team and just tell you a little bit about the counselors. I know that Sarah is going to provide an updated map. We're going through some transitions and territories in our office right now, so she will get that to you as soon as it's available. So, there's me on the left. My name is Megan. I work exclusively with the Chapel Hill region, and my territory kind of jumps around the Raleigh area and goes all the way to the beach. And then I serve the entire Northeast. So I have Virginia northward to Maine. Then we have Presley. She's our transfer student liaison. She's wonderful and she helps students with all things transfer recruitment and applications. We have Jack Sully. She works with students in Florida and the western part of the country, as well as the beach communities here in North Carolina. We have Elena. She's been with our office for 12-ish years, I believe, and she works with students in Winston-Salem down to Lake Norman, that region. We have Jane. She's another transfer liaison, and she's also our military liaison. She works exclusively with military students that come in. Heather is another admission counselor in our office, as well as Emmeline. And then we have Liz. She works with a lot of rural mountain counties, as well as the state of South Carolina. So just wanted to show you who all's working in our office. And again, please reach out to us if you have questions. All right, so now that you've met our staff, when it comes time to decide, most institutions give until May 1st. So if you talk to prospective students, just tell them there's no reason to rush. And that's pretty, I would say, nationwide in terms of a deadline. So they have until then to decide where they want to go to college. And they can really boil down their choices by attending some visits. Appalachian has admitted student visits frequently from around, I would say, we have them beginning in January through the summer months. And those are really exciting opportunities for students to kind of see what we offer, why they should pick Appalachian, and I would stress going to those if they can. Speaking with financial aid counselors and admission counselors in our office, as well as other schools as well, are really important. Comparing costs and offers are a pretty big part of the college selection process. So once they decide where they're going to go to school, they're going to confirm their enrollment via a student portal. Our portal is called the My Mountaineer portal, and it will list all of their steps. I did want to go through some of those with you today in case you do talk to students later in the year as they decide where they want to go to school. They're going to pay a deposit if required. We did have a $200 deposit this year that went towards the student's tuition, so it was not paid to our office in particular, and then it will unlock a series of steps. So again, all of these can be found in the portal. Students can be pretty self-sufficient in completing these. Of course, they can work with their families, but in case you see questions, there's a housing application where students can put in their prospective roommate. We do not allow students at this time to select their own housing, so that is still in place. We also have the orientation registration application. Orientation was virtual this past year, and I'm not sure how we're going to adapt as we go forward, but that was a big change, and we heard it was really, really successful. Then, of course, they have registration, and then they need to submit their final transcripts and pay their bill. So all of that will be done through their AppleNet portal, which will ultimately replace their student portal and pay their tuition bill. So again, those are just some of the steps. So I hope you learned a little bit about Appalachian, the college application process in general, and what we're doing right now in the Office of Admissions. I would love to connect with you if you have any questions. Here's my email address, and I'm really excited to be working with Sarah and a lot of our alumni volunteers. I'm a very, very proud alumni, a former educator. I was a high school teacher for 5 years, so if you have any students that are interested in that pathway, please send them my way, or I can connect them with Octavia. She helps student teachers and future educators like me. So I also just wanted to leave you a picture of my puppy dog. We're huge Appalachian fans, and we're lucky to continue to work and live in the area. So go Nears, and I hope that you enjoyed this little presentation today, and I look forward to working with you in the future.